Here are a few stories. It may be long, but it's certainly interesting enough to hold your attention. I've encountered many paranormal activities since I was a child. Apparently, things like this run in my family, but I seem to be the only one who has held on to my abilities. The first encounter I can recall was in Villa Rica, Georgia. I don't remember how old I was, but I know I was really young. My mother and I were driving to my aunt's house late at night. There was a store of some sort on the side of the road, which looked to be very old. Outside the door stood a light-up frame, which housed advertisements. I noticed a figure moving around it. It had huge white glowing eyes. And the best way I can explain it is by telling you that it reminded me of Spider-Man in the dark. I yelled for my mother to stop the car because the boogeyman was standing right outside the store. She told me I was seeing things, but to this day, she wishes she stopped the car. I saw things throughout my childhood so much that most nights I'd wind up sleeping on my mother's floor. We moved to Texas when I was about 9. The hauntings seemed to follow. I could tell that there was something wrong with the house the second I entered the doorway. I guess you could call it a feeling that I had. I always had trouble falling asleep. I would hear the sloshing of boots on the wet carpet, voices that I knew were not my parents. Those things didn't seem to bother me that bad, but what did bother me was when I did fall asleep, I'd wake up and could see an apparition floating above me. It had no recognizable shape to it. I'd stare at it and watch it move for a while. Then I'd run into my mother's room where, for some reason, I felt safe. The scariest thing I've ever encountered in a house was while my room was being renovated. I slept in the living room on the floor, and on this night, there was something that jolted me out of a sound sleep. As I lay on the floor, eyes wide open, I looked towards the kitchen. On the wall to the left of the kitchen was something I'd never seen, and I hope I never see again. It stood as tall as the ceilings did. Oh, I'm guessing about 8 to 9 feet. It was wearing a robe that covered the arms and face. Oh, I never saw any kind of features. I felt threatened by this creature, but I had no idea what to do. The creature stood still as I contemplated what actions would be best for me to take. I darted up as fast as I could and ran past the creature. I looked at it as I ran by, and all my doubts of me hallucinating were gone. It reached out towards me when I managed to get past it. I took a sharp left turn into my mother's room, where I ran to her side of the bed and hit my knees. I buried my head in her stomach and told her what I had seen. No one in my family has ever doubted that I can not only see spirits, but I could hear, smell, and even feel them. I never saw that creature again, just faint whispers, the smell of something burning when nothing was, and footsteps. When I was 17, I decided to go to the Job Corps in San Marcos, Texas. This particular campus is an actual old army base. Our dorm rooms were army barracks, where many soldiers had once slept. My first encounter with the apparition was in my dorm room. The lights were always turned out, but the faint glow of the fire escape lights lit up the room. I was sleeping when my eyes bolted open. I could see a man with a rain poncho on, and he was covered in water. He appeared to be holding a lantern, and he was about 5 feet away from me. His mouth was moving, but I never heard a word. I closed my eyes and fell back asleep. A few nights later, I awoke to find the man standing directly above me. I was on the bottom bunk, and I still can't believe no one else saw this man. I could see the glow of the lantern clearly, and his poncho was a shade of green. I could see the water dripping onto him, as if he were being rained on. His lips were moving as he looked directly at me, but still I heard nothing. I never felt threatened by him, so then I rolled over and fell back asleep. Many of the girls in my dorm reported seeing 2 children, a boy and a girl, playing with a bouncing ball. I never saw the children myself, but I never doubted anyone's story either. I came home 6 months later to the house I never held too dearly. I learned to ignore what I was hearing and feeling. I didn't have any encounters for a while, until I met a guy named Tony. Tony was a strange guy, and he believed in such things as the Necronomicon. Now, some people say it's just a book written to make money, but after living with Tony, I believe it's very real. Tony used to walk around the house chanting in Samaritan, and if you've ever read the Necronomicon, it warns you not to chant anything out loud. I swear, even his cat was possessed. It used to sit and stare at me with those big green eyes. It would attack me for no reason. Once I woke up with it sitting on my chest. Falling asleep was very difficult for me, even though Tony and I slept in the same bed. I could hear demonic breathing, and it filled the entire room. There were shadows that would move across the walls. I could hear my name being called out. This happened every night that I lived there. I started having nightmares on a nightly basis as well. In my dream, there sat a demon on my chest that was talking to me in Samaritan. I could hear the weight of it as it sneered into my face. It would lower its head until it was touching me. I'd wake up at that moment. Then Tony woke up a few times, and he swears I was talking in Samaritan. I moved out after a year because the intensity of it all was becoming too much for me to handle. Nothing much happened to me until I was about 20. That was when I moved into an apartment in Spring Beach, and again, I could tell you something that was wrong with it. The moment I walked through the threshold, there were 3 of us living there. Brandon, my boyfriend, and I. Brandon took the bedroom, and Wes and I slept in the living room on a small mattress. The first weird thing happened a few nights after we settled in. That was when all 3 of us would be in the living room, and Brandon's TV came on. Just a pitch black screen. It happened all the time. One in particular night stands out. This was when I was home alone playing a video game, when I heard Brandon's TV come on. And from Brandon's room I could hear his blinds rustling around. They were closed the last time I went in. I ignored it, and then fell asleep. When I woke up in the morning, I decided to go look in his room. The TV was off, and the blinds were pulled up and severely tangled. That freaked me out really bad. It only happened once, but still, I'll never forget it. There would be a number of times when I would be in the bathroom, and I'd be fixing my hair, and I'd see someone walk by the door, even though I was alone. Once I even heard the front door open, and I heard a man call out my name, thinking it was one of the boys. No one answered back. I heard the door close, and I went to see what was going on. There was no one in my living room, nor was there anyone on my porch. My phone rang, and it was Wes, saying he and Brandon would be home in a few minutes. I moved out shortly after. I'm now 22, living in Blainsville, Georgia. I've learned to ignore the spirits that follow me. There are times when I see things, or even smell something funny, and I still hear my name being called out. I've started having extremely weird, but lucid dreams. Nothing really exciting is happening to me in this house, but if it does, you'll be the first to know. After my encounter one late night in August with my sister, I found out that we'd always been around ghosts. My family has moved around 5 times, and in every place, there have been at least one ghost there with us. When I lived in Texas, I moved from Houston to San Antonio. In that move, a ghost that we'd had for a year followed us to our new apartment. After living there for about a year, we discovered a new ghost. This one would hold the bathroom doors closed and knock over our memorabilia items we had on display. The event that completely changed my view of the paranormal happened in August of 2001. It was the early hours in the morning, about 4 a.m., and for some reason I couldn't sleep. My older sister was on her computer, and she found a bunch of old music files she had downloaded for her history of rock class. Then she came across a Britney Spears parody song, downloaded from a radio station's website. Well, the song itself was actually only a clip, about 30 to 40 seconds long. We played it, and the file for some reason was corrupt. The words were garbled, playing in a slow, deep, incomprehensible voice. I had chills listening to it play, and when I looked at the corner, it had been playing for over a minute. My sister finally turned it off. She was just as spooked as I was. We moved on, laughing about the look on the other's face. Then about 5 minutes later, we heard 3 soft, solid pounds on the back wall, in the far back of the apartment. Neither of us said a word. We just listened, trying to explain away in our minds. We lived on the 2nd floor and shared only one wall, and that was not it. Another couple of minutes passed by, and the banging jumped to the one long wall we shared. Still towards the back of the apartment, but getting closer. We couldn't help but stare at each other. After that one, we finally decided to ask the other if she'd heard that. Of course we heard the same thing, and not a minute later the banging jumped to the room next to us. On the same wall, 3 solid bangs escalating in amplitude. My heart was racing, waiting for the next set, afraid of where it would jump next. A couple minutes passed, and just as I began to calm down and blame the banging on the maintenance worker that we shared the wall with, the banging suddenly jumped forward to the wall behind the computer. I looked above me to see the ceiling light shaking. Moments later, the banging shot across the room to the balcony. It sounded as if the entire wall was pounded on with one giant fist. 3 echoing pounds later, everything stopped. I checked the sliding doors, and thankfully they were locked. We both ran into my mother's room, where she was still sleeping. She hadn't heard anything. That is something I will never understand. My baby brother was in the same room with her, door closed, and he heard a soft rumble and my mother heard nothing. After that experience, I've always been a little on edge. I always think about what would have happened if I'd left the sliding doors unlocked that night. And what was the thing trying to get in? One thing I know for sure is that my ghost from Houston left that night, and the one already there seemed to get more active. Everyone started to hear their name being called, even when there was nobody around. No one ever attempted to communicate with whatever it was. As a matter of fact, we rarely began to answer unless we saw the person who was calling us. 2 years later, after I finished high school, we moved to Iowa when I was accepted to college, and so far, we have not had any strange occurrences. The same thing followed me around until I finally left your father. My mom told me, after I'd finally told her about the strange experiences I'd been having. Since I was 13, something had been terrorizing me. Negative energy had latched onto me and followed me for years whenever I went. It is said that at that age, as a female, your emotions are so unstable. You become very vulnerable to the negative entities that sadly roam the earth in search of company. This entity was particularly depressed and angry. It was smothering and possessive, and sometimes lashed out at me for no apparent reason. It started one night when I awoke to breathing in my ear. It was hard and heavy, like emphysema patients sound when not on a breathing apparatus. Naturally, I was startled and tried to get up to run, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed. No matter how hard I tried, I could not move a single muscle. The paralysis apparently affected my whole body. I couldn't even open my eyes to scream. By now, the breathing had stopped, but I still couldn't move. Finally, after what seemed like hours of malfunctioning, I jolted upright in bed, gulping in air. That was when I realized that I hadn't even been breathing during that episode. I was determined to stay up the rest of the night until daylight, but sleep took over and eventually, I was knocked out. I awoke again to the same scenario. This time I fought back even harder, and it lasted only less than a second. When I told my dad about this, he had assured me it was a night terror, but suggested I sprinkle holy water in the corners of my room and carry a cross. I later found out that he only said that to avoid scaring me. He actually believed that I was being followed by a supernatural force. From then on, although I had not experienced an attack, I continued to see a shadow of a very, very tall, width-wide man in my closet. I had a rough childhood from 13 until I moved out at 17. I endured a lot of emotional and verbal abuse by my father and hadn't spoken much to my mother in years. I felt very abandoned by both of my parents. I was rebelling to the extreme. I was at an all-time low in my life when I met my boyfriend Maurice. He gave me a reason to be happy again and I fell in love. I moved in with him when I was 17 to get as far away from the abuse as possible. I still saw this shadow figure standing in my closet at night in our new apartment. I refused to sleep alone. I became very dependent on Maurice's company. Maurice, being a skeptic, thought I was just seeing things. One night, as I sleepily crawled out of bed to go to the bathroom, I opened my eyes only to see blackness. Pure blackness. I panicked, thinking I had gone blind. When I realized this blackness was swirling, I looked way up and saw that the shadow was standing right in front of me. I screamed and jumped back onto the bed on top of my sleeping boyfriend. I was crying and covering my eyes. He panicked as well and was doing the best to console me without knowing what was wrong. I tried to explain it to him over my sobbing. He became angry and yelled into the thin air for the shadow to leave me alone. Then he turned on the light for me so I could complete my earlier mission. I didn't see the shadow for the rest of the night. On another occasion, I had made the mistake of sleeping alone. My boyfriend was playing video games with a friend. When I awoke, I noticed the room was lighted red. I tried to turn on the light, but it didn't work. I suddenly felt an overwhelming, impending doom that scared me so badly. I proceeded to run from the room. That's when I suddenly awoke again. Okay, it was suddenly a dream, I thought. Thank God. But again, I noticed the room lighted red as in the dream. This time I ran without attempting to turn the light on. I got to my boyfriend and lay down to sleep on the couch. I awoke later back in my room, in the same exact scenario. Finally, I started to cry, and I ran to my boyfriend, asking him to hold me until I fell asleep. I awoke again, this time for real. I was back in my room, and noticed that the room was dark now, as I remembered it when I fell asleep. I slept on the couch in the living room with my boyfriend, until he came to bed with me. We moved into another apartment a few months later, in a nicer neighborhood. It was here that the attacks became more frequent and more menacing. I had visions of terrible violence in that apartment that I believe left a lot of negative energy in that place. Then, coupled with the worsening violence between me and my boyfriend and the deeper depression I fell into, it made for a very unhappy home. Strange things occurred to me almost every night. I still saw the shadow in the closet at night. I would see things move in the corner of my eye. I felt someone watching me all the time. Once the water faucet turned on by itself, I was always losing things. I would hear footsteps coming towards me when I would go to sleep alone, only for them to stop when I turned to see who it was and saw no one there. I became very afraid of looking into mirrors at night. I started sleeping with the lights on and the TV blaring to block out the sound and to avoid seeing things in the dark. Eventually, I stopped sleeping in my bed altogether. When Marie started working the graveyard shift, my boyfriend complained of a corner of our bedroom that creeped him out, and he refused to go near it. One day in the throes of my depression, following a severe fight with my boyfriend, I decided I couldn't take life anymore. My boyfriend had left for hours, and I had no clue when he was coming back. I felt the presence of the shadow suffocating me. I opened a bottle of Excedrin migraine with sleep aid and downed the entire bottle. Fortunately for me, I had taken in too much of the poison, and my body rejected it. I began vomiting profusely until I was dry heaving, so badly that I couldn't even breathe. I crawled out of the bathroom in immense pain. I began to feel the effects of what medicine did make into my bloodstream. The entire time I felt the shadow's presence so strongly, it literally suffocated me until I was gasping for air again. I was so high on sleep and I passed out on the floor. I vaguely remember my boyfriend picking me up and placing me in our bed and falling asleep with his arms around me. Not too long after that, my boyfriend and I had planned a movie night together. As I walked into the bathroom to join him, I suddenly noticed a look of terror on his face. I ran to see if he was okay. He just grabbed me and kissed me and said it was nothing. I badgered him to tell me what was wrong. Then finally he says, "I saw your shadow. It was hovering behind you while you were coming into the room." Then a chill ran up my spine, and I asked him to describe it to me. He then said it was a black cloudy mist that hovered over my head a foot behind me. In the blackness, he noticed that there were two holes that looked as though they were its eyes. He was so taken back by what he saw that he blinked hard to make sure it was real, which is when it disappeared. That's when he said, "I thought you were just exaggerating about this, that you were just seeing things, but now I know. I'm sorry I didn't take you so seriously." After our year lease was up, I wanted to get as far away as possible from that apartment. The last day in that apartment, we took my son's suggestion and saged the apartment and ourselves. Then we prayed for the shadow to leave and abandoned the apartment. I haven't seen the shadow since, nor have I suffered any more attacks. I have since improved my life drastically with the change in my outlook on life to help guide me. My mom believes that the shadow may have been an extension of my dad, attempting to watch over me. It makes perfect sense. It attacked me the most when my dad and I started drifting further apart from each other. In the midst of my depression, my dad succeeded in taking his life a couple of months after I had gotten rid of the shadow. Although I miss him with all of my heart and soul, I have not felt that negative energy around me since his passing. This to me confirms my mother's belief. Despite this, I sometimes fear the return of the worst thing to haunt me in my life, the shadow. This video isn't ending now, but if it does, I'll let you know. Subscribe, comment, share, and like. It's ending now, and I'm letting you know. The video is over, so in the comment section below, write "it ended now" to let me know that you got to the end of this video and you're watching and you're active, and I'm done. Okay, long video is gonna come probably Saturday, maybe? Depends. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.